Vogue and Pose. Paris is Burning, 1987. Madonna, voguing early and end of in the beginning of the 90s. Ron Murphy has entered the world of ballroom culture, coming from the underground of Black, Latinos, and all colors of the rainbow, gay, lesbian, trans, and all of the alphabets. On Sunday, Ron Murphy introduced mainstream to pose, basically. Those of you all who are not familiar with ballroom culture will now get an introduction to what it's like, to be in a house that is specifically for, and that has been for, gay young people who have been deserted by their families and who have been thrown out by their families simply because they identify and they want to live in their truth. They want to live in their truth. They want to be who they are. And Ron Murphy has taken upon the task that he wants to tell the story. I'm going to say tell the story. I identify with this episode. One reason why I identify with this episode, because ballroom culture is specifically coming, and I may be wrong about it, but I'm just going to go ahead. It's coming from the Latino and brown community of the gay and lesbian world. And I am proud to say that I myself, at one time, I'm not going to say that I was a part of the community when it comes to ballroom, but I will tell you that I was basically in it, and I saw it develop. And let me tell you, if you've never been to a ballroom show, you need to experience it. But before you go, you need to get the history. Pose is basically, and I'm going to say, being adapted from the documentary Paris is Burning. And Paris is Burning hit the scene in the late or middle or the beginning of the 80s. Pose is taking a little bit out of history, and it is set in New York City in 1987, just at the end or not at the beginning of AIDS in the gay and lesbian community, and it was hitting the male population of the gay and lesbian community very hard. Um, as far as AIDS is concerned within the women's community, it was there, but it was not as prevalent. Now, this show, and I'm gonna, give Ron Murphy his props. Um, Now, from what I understand, and from some of the information that I was able to gather, this show was basically again pushed by, from what I told, straight black women who got a hold of it, and they, pushed it. And here we go again. Now, Pose is a story about two houses. One is the house of abundance, which is the mother. Alexis is the mother of abundance. And then we have Bianca, who is the mother of the house of Evangela. Shit, I guess that's it, Evangela. But anyway, I'll get it right as we go along. And how we get introduced to the house of abundance and how Ron brings the audience in. He brings the audience in by way of letting you see the children of the house of abundance. And this show is basically going to make history. It's because we are actually going to see 5 trans women who are living their truth and who are living their dream, and they are acting in in this um pilot that's getting ready to go off. And we find out in the house of abundance that for the first time in a long time, the house of abundance has lost a title, has not won in a very long time. And this is when we get to meet the characters and the beginning of House of Abundance and House of Evangelist. I can't pronounce it. I know I could, but anyway. And so we meet Bianca, who is a part of the House of Electra, and they were trying to figure out what category that they should walk in. And Alexis wanted to know and wanted to get some ideas bouncing. So Bianca says, well, why don't we do royalty? But instead of royalty, why don't we all walk as the house, as the house? And so, of course, all the kids and the children of the house of abundance was basically laughing at Bianca's ideas. And then Bianca, basically what she did is she stole the idea. What Alexis did was to steal the idea from Bianca. And she says, well, I have an idea. Let's, do the house of royalty. No, what was it? The house of abundance. Royalty from the house of abundance. And so we go on and we push into and this is when we push into and we see the house of abundance going into a museum. And basically the reason why they're going into a museum is that they are getting ready to they're getting ready for their next category. And in order for this category, the category has to represent royalty and all that is of royalty, from the jewelry all the way down to the shoes. You have to own everything. And so we see the children of abundance going to the museum, and they go into a particular hall, and in that particular hall we see all of these costumes in I guess in the royal part of the museum. And so they find out that they only have about 5 minutes in the museum. So the purpose of them going to this museum is to take everything that's in the museum and they're going to steal it. And the reason why they're going to steal it is that they are going to use it for their next category. And so the museum closes, and they say, well, you have 5 minutes before the museum closes. The museum closes, and lights go out, and we see the lights go out, and then that's when they come out of hiding and they begin to take um all of the costumes. And so one of the children in the house of abundance asked the mother, Alexis, what should we do? And she says, take all of the costumes. So they take all of the costumes, which is very, very interesting. But we'll get to, responsibility of a mother. Um, and so they take the costumes and they leave the museum and they go to the ballroom where this next category is taking place. And so we see the host, his name is Preston or Pastor, I don't know. Well, we see the host, the father of the ballroom, basically there and introducing the categories. And so you see all the people coming out and all of the different categories. And then this is when we see the house of abundance, the royal house of abundance, and everybody was basically singing. Everybody was looking good. Everybody was doing their walk. Everybody was actually posing. And we see that the police has basically caught up with them and they win the category. But before they win the category, and then this is when the policeman comes in, and this is the beginning of Ron Murphy's episode of Pose. This is how he brings it, introduce it to the audience, and he brings it in. Then we go into a little small town, and this is where we meet Damien. Damien is a 17-year-old who basically has aspiration, who wants to become a dancer. He wants to become a dancer, but his father is totally against it. We see Damon in a dance studio practicing. He finishes practice, and then we see his father coming up. And before his father comes up, we see Damien is in his room. Um, he has a tape that he basically practiced when he's finishing, you know, being at the studio. And so we see his father. His father comes in and he sees Damien dancing. And then he tells Damien, he says, I told you not to dance. I told you that there would be no dancing. And this is when his father confronts Damien. And so apparently his father is into what will the people say because one of his friends or something saw him at the dance school. And so he told Damien, I saw one of my friends saw you at the dance school, and I thought we agreed for you not to be doing all of this dancing, which is a little frilly kind of thing. And so basically, the father was upset, and he tells his son, he says, "Tell me the truth. What are you?" I mean, and apparently Damien says, "I want to become a dancer, and I'm basically gay." And so this is when his father went off, and of course, his father picks him up, throws him out the house. The mother comes up, finds that the father basically have is like beating on her son with a belt, and you know how want to beat the gladness out of him. And so we see the mother, and you may thinking that the mother will be basically trying to protect her son, but basically she wasn't trying to protect her son. It's because she wanted her son is to basically do what the father and what she wanted to do, and she had already told Damien that being gay is abomination, and homosexuality, and you know how the Bible thumpers do. And so she also tells Damien, she tells him that you're going to be cursed with a disease. And of course, back in the early 80s, a lot of people, and still some people, are still ignorant to the fact that HIV and what AIDS was all about. Because at that time in the community, most of the people that were catching the virus, HIV, were mainly men. And I'm not gonna say mainly black men. I'm just gonna say there were a lot of men. It's because I had a lot of my friends who basically died of HIV and AIDS. Um, and we're gonna get into it a little bit more. And so Damien is basically thrown out of his house because of who he is at the age of 17. And he leaves his little small town in Pennsylvania, and he goes to New York City, to pursue his dreams. Um, then we meet um Angel. Angel is basically one of Alexis' children in the House of Abundance. And we meet Stan. Stan is a white man who has just landed a job in the Trump Towers. And so we meet Dan in car strolling an avenue somewhere in New York City, and he has been trolling Angel. And so basically him and Angel gets together, and they go into a hotel room, and Damien no, Angel and Stan is actually asking questions about each other, and Stan asks Angel to take her clothes off, and he's basically sitting in bed and he's looking at her body. And so Angel tells Stan that she's basically saving up money so she can have one part of her body done correctly, and she wants to do it properly. And so this is where we meet Stan and Angel, and we will basically get back into that a little bit more. Then we see we're at a Bianca is sitting in this sterile looking clinic. So she basically went to the clinic to do a test and to see whether or not if she basically had the virus. And so basically she did have the virus. And so at that time again, like I'm explaining, at that time again, the having HIV was very, very big. Very people, like I said, people were passing away. My best friend had passed away, and so there wasn't too much information on HIV at the time, and a lot of people who were dying were taking very, very heavy medication. They were taking medication as the ATZ at that time was considered a cocktail, which was a lot of medication. And so we find that Bianca has the virus. And so she goes to the guy, the father of the ballroom, and basically let him know what was basically that she has the virus. Now, no one knows that Bianca has the virus. And so he told her, he said, see, I don't know why you basically went there because you knew what the deal was and everything. And so Bianca was like, deciding that, instead of moaning over the fact that she has this virus and she doesn't know exactly how long she has to live, she's decided that she wants to become a mother. And so quietly, she had went and found an apartment, found a home. But the house of abundance and the mother of Alexis had found out that she was looking for a place and that she wanted and that she was getting ready to move on and that she was going to have her own house. And so basically she leaves the house of abundance. Of course, Alexis was not very proud of due to the fact. And of course, she kind of broke her down or tried to break her down and tell her that basically she wasn't really going to be too much, that she wasn't going to really last too much, and the fact that she couldn't really survive. And Bianca said that she will be able to survive, but um, Alexis told her that you will basically be back in the house of abundance. And so we go on, and this is where we see that Alexis and Bianca are going to become rivals. These two houses, the story is going to be surrounded by the house of abundance and the house of evangelistic, or however you pronounce that name. And so we see that Bianca meets her first child, her firstborn, and that's Damien, who is basically in the park, basically dancing for money, and she sees him, and she asks Damien, Damien, um, what was his aspiration, and does he want to be a part of her house? And so this is where Damien gets introduced to the ballroom scene because Bianca takes him to the ballroom and introduce him to the ballroom scene. And basically, she tells him exactly what the ballroom scene is, and that the fact that in the underworld of ballroom, that and she tells him, she says, we may not, walk the red carpet, but as far as knowing who we are, as far as the house is concerned, you will be well known. And so Damien, gets introduced into the world of ballroom. After that, we go and we see that Angel and Stan has basically met each other and they're talking, and Stan asks Angel what's her aspiration, and he they don't get together. They didn't hadn't really consummated their relationship yet for the first time. They just laid there, talked about music, and we left. But before Stan leaves, he asks if he could kiss Angel. And so to me, this was the first kiss for Stan coming from a trans woman. And he kisses her, he pays her, but then he goes home and just about almost tried to brush his whole complete mouth out due to the fact of what he had just, encountered. And so we see that we meet and we see that Stan and Angel. And so Angel, we see that Angel is basically going to the Tower Trumps where Stan basically work at. But she's not there to meet him. She's there to do an interview for a job. And so she goes into the Trump Tower and because the Trump Tower is where the job was, basically a vacancy there. And so she goes up, she's excited due to the fact that she's in this luxury Trump Tower. And she goes to the counter, and the lady tells her, I'm sorry, we have no opening. The job is it's nothing. We don't have anything for you. And so she says, but, and the white lady, of course, this is a white lady, says that, I'm sorry, we don't have anything for you. And so this is when Angel says, why? Am I not woman enough for you or whatever? And I was like, oh, heck, here we go. And so she comes downstairs, Angel comes down the escalators, and she's very not feeling real good. You could see the expression on her face. She was like very disappointed. And then she stood there at the Trump Towers. And this is when she sees Stan. And so Stan is coming basically out of the car with his boss, who he met when he made the interview. And so Stan tells her, why are you here? I cannot be with anyone like you. And so this is where Angel has gotten a double whammy. Here we have um, a man who was basically stalking her for almost 3 months. He finally gets up the courage to, have her to come in. Although, of course, she was, she was tricking. She was on the corner. Okay, but that doesn't really make the fact. And then she sees him again, and he rejects her due to the fact that she came to Trump Tower. But I don't think, because way it was written, the way they wrote it, is that I don't think that that was her intention. The job just happened to be at Trump Towers at an opening, and Trump Towers is where Stan works at. And so she got rejected from him. And so we go on, and we go on after Alexis and Bianca had their little feud. We see that Bianca introduces Damien to the house father. I know his name, but I'm just going to say the house father of the ballroom scene. And we find out that he works at Macy's. He's a spritzer, and a spritzer is a person who sprays people who, to try the different scents and colognes in the store. But he also has aspiration of being a designer. And so Bianca and him are basically friends. And he tells Bianca that you know, in order to become what you have to practice, and you have to be the categories or whatever. And so we meet Dan, and Dan is giving Bianca all the information and basically that she needs to know. Okay. And so the house father is at the ball, and then this is when we see Angel at the ball, and we see Bianca, and we see um um Electra. And then the Electra is basically saying some nasty things to her, saying, "What are you here trying to recruit trying to recruit some kids to be a part of your house?" And so Bianca didn't really pay any her attention. And so this is where we see Angel basically doing the walk. And the category, I believe the category was evening wear or something. But to get to it, she did not have the right clothing on. She did not present what the category was. So she got, bad scores. And so she runs out of the ball room. And we see Bianca saying that now that these people weren't really interested in this. And so we go on and we see that um, Bianca has excuse me guys, Angel decides that she wants to be a part of the house of evangelist. I don't know. You guys tell me in the comments. And so we see that um, we see that Bianca is developing her house, and thus so far is three people in the house. And she also um, take her kids to their first ball, and they weren't ready, but they decided that and Bianca decided that they have to get ready in order to be a part of the ball scene. And so their first competition, and so they put a challenge, and the challenge was from the House of Abundance. And of course, the House of Abundance, and then we found out that Alexa's house is called the House of um, Evangelist, or what, evangelist, whatever. And so they go into the house of they go into the ballroom, and actually they didn't, from what I could see, they didn't do too bad at all. They got about maybe three nines, or maybe three nines and maybe two fives, so what I can see. This is then I'm gonna cut to the chase real quick, is that um Bianca gets another child. He is a Latino, looks like he is a Latino, and he joins the house. And so they do a challenge, and they lose the challenge, but um, Bianca now has her house. And the last scene is that we see that Bianca has taken Damien to the School of Dance in New York to basically enroll in the school. Um, he gets there, and Bianca finds out that he really hasn't been keeping up his appointments. And so she goes there and she talks to the dean of dance, and she gets Damien a rehearsal. She gets him an audition. He goes in, he does the audition, he is in. Pose, guys, pose. Now let me tell you about this ballroom scene. I'm delighted to say that, like I said, I don't know if I said it in the beginning. Um, I was a part of that historical scene of ballroom being introduced to the mainstream. If the mainstream. I have done uh, walked a particular category. And let me explain for those of you all, if you don't understand or know what it is just, how can I explain this? Do you know how the models walk today and some of the things that they do and how they model? Well, basically, that is coming from the ballroom culture. Do you know the Donna Summers? Not Donna Summers, although some of the music is like fabulous. But the voguing, the voguing song Vogue, which is coming from Madonna. Well, basically, and she was very notorious for having a lot of gay men in her video, and she introduced she introduced the song Vogue for all of those who like maybe might be in their maybe 50-ish and 40-ish now. I myself, I'm in my 60s, so I'm like 60. So I know about this culture. I know about it, but mainly it's really about a lot of gay men, but not really a lot of gay men. Pose is the different categories is when they say the realness, and when they say realness, real femme, real butch, real dyke, real male, real gay man. Those are the different categories. And so I'm telling you all, this is because it wasn't just for this ballroom culture, was not just for gay, straight, and lesbian, bi, and all the alphabet. It was for anyone who basically wanted to embrace the culture, embrace it, because we have straight male and women that basically go to and it still exists. It's really an underground culture, but really it's not underground culture. It's kind of mainstream, but it's really going to get mainstream with by FX and Ron Murphy presenting this um to the masses. And I don't know if I'm good about it. This is a little longer, but I mean, I'm just so excited that this is being embraced. Now, there are going to be some people who are not going to like it, who is going to Bible something, who is going to do all kinds of negative things. But I will tell you how and why the modeling community is the way it is now. It is because of us. When I say us, my community brought this to you guys, and you guys have taken it and somewhat want to embrace it. But I'm gonna tell you, you can embrace it, but remember the history of it. Remember who brought it to the screen. Remember who introduced it. It was our community, not yours, but our community. Those who embrace, those who are allies, have embraced this pose. And let me just tell you, I know a couple of designers. I know one particular designer right now, and he is fabulous. I don't want to put his name out there, but he when it comes to his designs, he is off the hook. A lot of these designers are coming from ballroom. So, Ron Murphy, I'm gonna tell you, hit it out the park. Um, I'm not really familiar with your work, but I understand that we are about to see some stuff. I think you've done a horror story, and I'm sure we're going to see some rough side of the ballroom scene. And basically, there are some rough sides of the ballroom scene, but I will tell you that this is the beginning of a history that the world needs to understand it and to know it and to understand how a lot of style is coming from. This is All Things Cheryl. I am going to try to do it. This was a very long, I wasn't going to do it, but I got so excited about it. This is All Things Cheryl. Subscribe, subscribe. That's all I'm going to say. And peace and love. And love is for everyone because this is long. Subscribe. Um, Post comes on this Sunday at, I believe it's between either 9 or 10 o'clock. I'm going to tell you all, look at this show, look at it, and understand it. And I'll come back and give you a little bit more history of my experience being, I'm not going to say of it, but know of it. Till the next time, subscribe.